So the summer nectar flow, this is the bearding I was talking about that is so attractive to skunks here on the top. And in the summer, when you see this colony, what do you think about it? Why do you think they're out there so much? It's hot and it's overpopulated. So if they added a box, that would be very helpful. There would be much less bearding. Bearding is definitely a sign. It's a normal sign. There is ordinarily a beard, but it's not quite that populated. And so it would be good if they had another box. You want to always water your bees. They use a lot of water for evaporation and staying cool in the summer. And as a good beekeeper, it's important for you to provide the water source. I have an irrigation ditch that my bees mostly forage from. They like water that moves and flows, but if you don't have that, a chicken feeder works great with, just with rocks down in the little trough, gives them a place to walk without drowning. And if you place that about 20 feet in front of their hive, off to the side, wherever it's convenient for you. But if you set it next to the hive, they'll miss it because they're visually oriented. They just won't see it. So you just want to kind of, give them the opportunity to see the reflection of the water out as they fly away. Yes?
What's the radius that they go collect water?
They forage 4 to 5 miles, a 4 to 5 mile radius. But they go to the closest water source. So if it's your neighbor's kiddie pool, they'll be happy to accommodate your neighbors.
So they can go into the stock tanks, which is fine. Or we got the running stream of Early Creek a third of a mile away. Would they go to that part of it?
They would. Even though there are other water opportunities for them, I would still just provide a chicken feeder. Yeah, it's just part of being a responsible beekeeper and being sensitive to the people that live around you. They might not like it. I mean, most people really are very agreeable about it. But just, I would just have a chicken feeder or something out there. I have like a little pond thing in my bee yard. In the wintertime, they forage for water on nice days, and so they'll go out and forage groundwater. It's good to have a water source, but usually the sun provides enough thaw.
You always want to have your hives in the open sun. What happens if you put them in the shade?
If they thrive best in morning sun with their entrance facing southeast or east. And afternoon shade is fine, and diffuse sunlight is fine, but morning sun is optimum.
So morning sun and afternoon shade?
Yeah. Mine are in full sun, and they seem to be fine. I provide a windbreak for them and water, and they do fine. And the entrances are faced all different ways. So it's definitely, there's optimum ways to do it, but it's mostly at your convenience. So, and you can experiment a little bit with it. So once you have enough comb built in these 2 brood chambers, then you want to consider honey storage, and you want to make sure that you have supers on hand to do that, because all of a sudden you'll have all of these bees and you'll need a super. It's great that D&B now has equipment so that you don't have to ship it and wait for it and assemble it. You can just come and get a box, and you're going to want to decide, are you going to want a deep box, or are you going to want the more shallow boxes? And like I said, these big boxes can weigh 70 to 90 pounds when they're full of honey. So it just depends on, what you can lift. You don't have to lift them all together. You can kind of disassemble everything. But a medium box weighs about 45 pounds heavy, so that's a little bit more manageable if it's just you. So, and supering, that term, supering, is when you just add a box on top. So that's all that means, is supering, when you're adding boxes on top to make your honey storage larger. Yes? Well, I'm not sure what the application is. You want to make sure that that any pesticide that you use, it of course is optimum if it's bee safe, and then you want to follow the labels to the letter. They're usually applied at dusk. From my understanding, I have to deal with mosquito abatement where I live, and so they do fogging and crop dusting at dusk, and then anything that's deadly is supposed to gas off by the morning. And I honestly have not had a bee kill from mosquito abatement. I know there's a lot of contention between beekeepers and mosquito abatement sometimes, and it's good to communicate with them. As far as crop, fruit trees, I'm sure that there are bee-specific instructions. And as for wasps, if you have a wasp problem in your bee colony, then you have a weak colony. Bees manage wasps just fine. They do. If it's a nice, big, strong, healthy colonies, they're more tenacious in the fall because everyone's sort of on a frenzy to get their last little bit of food in for the winter, gather their last bit of food. So they're a little bit more annoying in the fall, and they can start robbing problems in your bee yard as well. Okay. So when you're looking for frame reading and brood, this is a nice, tight, healthy frame here. This is called a worker pattern. And how many of these frames are covered with these? You want at least 3 frames that look like this in your brood chambers. This nice, tight pattern right here with just a few open cells where the bees have hatched out, that's a good thing. That's a nice, healthy frame. If it's spotty like this is called shot brood, and that's a problem. That's usually a queen problem of some kind. So if you see this, you want to have an experienced beekeeper come and help you determine what the problem is. You want to make sure that you're always going to see a little bit of honey here in the corners and a little bit of pollen just above the brood area. So when you see these open cells, or sometimes they're a tan color, the honey in the corners of the brood chamber, they cover with tan wax for some reason. So that's what you're seeing there. And it's very different looking. You can see how different. This looks like a little spongy, and it's tan. At the beginning, it's kind of cream color, and then as the bees use the comb, it gets darker over time. So it will eventually be golden and then dark golden. And again, if you have a honey flow on, you'll see the cap of the honey is white. So it looks distinctly different, and you kind of have to just persevere and try to learn what you're looking at. So is there plenty of food stores? Lots of honey? There's drone brood down here on this bottom frame, so it's really nice and healthy. And are there signs of the queen? Because do you need to find the queen? What are you going to look for? Yes. Eggs. So if you see eggs on the tip on the bottom of the cell standing up like this, then you know that's a 1-day-old egg. So you know the queen's been there at least 1 day. Each day that egg starts to kind of lay down, and then on the 3rd day it will hatch into those little larvae that we saw at the very first part of the presentation. So you just want to look for eggs. If you can't see the eggs, then you want to make sure that you're holding the frame up and the sun is coming from behind you over your shoulder. And you can easily see the eggs. Or you can use that cool black foundation, which I only have 1 box with that black foundation, and I love it because it's just so easy to see the eggs. And so unless there's a problem, you really don't need to pull everything apart. You just want to see lots of growth, every brood cycle, more and more growth. And again, if you don't see that, then you want to take a look. But sometimes you can just lift the lid and you can see, oh, there's a lot of bees there, and you just close the lid. Because every time you get in, you make a mess, and they have to clean it up, and it kind of puts them behind a little bit. So this is what that wax, that nice capped ripe honey looks like. It's nice and white. Sometimes the bees will cap the cell down a little bit lower, and so it will actually look a little bit wet, but this is just the nice capped honey. So if you've had a huge explosion in your population and a nice honey flow and nice strong bees, then you're going to take some honey off of your bees. Sometimes in packages you don't get a honey harvest the first year, but not to worry. Oftentimes first year beekeepers will just let the bees keep all of their honey that year, the package bees, and then you'll take some honey the next year. This frame, this box is about ready to extract. The box needs to be capped at 80%. So 80% needs that white capping, and then you can extract it. If you extract a little bit higher, I'm not sure what the humidity is. In Salt Lake, because it's such a desert, you can harvest this and you won't have a fermentation problem, but you want to make sure that the hydration on the honey is about 18% before you extract it, or you'll get a little bit of a fermentation problem. Yes?
How do you check that 18%? Like, how do you know?
There's an instrument called a refractometer, but you don't really need a refractometer. You can just, if the frames look like this, you would want to give this frame about another week, so it can be a little bit open on the bottom, and it's probably fine. Do any of the beekeepers have trouble with fermentation up here? No, no trouble. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. So if you have lots of bees and you provide flowers, this is a little bit of basil flowering, then you're going to get some honey harvest. This particular year I harvested every month just to kind of look at what the different colors of honey were in my area. So the lightest honey was the end of June. The middle honey was the end of July, and the later honey was the end of August. And so you can see each crop, the fruit flowers and the dandelions. So the fruit tree flowers are the lightest ones. And it's actually, for me, it's more flavorful and actually more robust than the darker. The middle are the summer flowers, and the clover, alfalfa, the vegetable gardens, any maybe annual plant that might be around. And then the later, black-eyed Susan, sunflower, the clover, the yellow clover it's really beautiful when you pick up a frame of honey and you've got all of these different colors. It's pretty cool. You don't have to separate it like this. I just did this because I had an extractor and I thought, well, it's kind of a hassle to clean up. Most beekeepers just do it all at once and it's combined. So you don't have to do it this way. Here's some extraction equipment. So this is a hot knife, and you just take that hot knife across the surface and just take that wax covering off, and you put it in an extractor which uses centrifugal force, and it just slings the honey out to the sides and it runs down, and then you can bottle it. And this in the lower right hand corner is the cap, or the wax capping, and you can let that drip in an area that's bug-free. I put it inside of a big container in my garage where it's hanging in a strainer, and you can let it drip. And I got about a gallon of honey from a couple of 100 pounds of, well, I harvested a couple of 100 pounds of honey, and in the cap that I took off of the frames, there was about a gallon of extra honey. Plus the wax you can render for a variety of things. So you want to save that wax. It's the wax cap, it crystallizes pretty fast. It's better just to separate it. You can do crush and strain, where you just deconstruct, but that's harder on the bees. Oftentimes they're for rent, and I know in the fall D&B will have them for sale. So maybe sometimes people get together collectively and buy extraction equipment just for.
The Boise Bee Club, they do an exchange of their extractors.
Do they? So oftentimes you can rent them.